Real Country 1430 AM and 107.3 FM WRDN. I'm Brian Winnekins from the NAFB Convention, and thank you to our broadcast sponsors, including Alcivia Co-op, Compure Financial, Annabis Silo, also Osteoplastics, Wisconsin Farmers Union, Synergy Co-op, Wisconsin Corn Growers Association, and the Animal Wellness Center of Buffalo Valley. Joining us right now is Deane Jorgenson. She is with Technical Development Lead at Syngenta. We're going to talk a little bit about corn rootworm issues today. And Deane, thanks for joining us. First, thanks to Syngenta for being a sponsor of the Farm Broadcaster of the Year program. I was named that last year. And so, again, thank you to Syngenta for doing that. But let's talk some corn rootworm issues. And that is something, even in Wisconsin, we've been seeing that kind of spreading. So what are some of the control things that farmers need to consider for 2022?
Yeah, well, thanks very much for having me. It's been my pleasure to be here. And honestly, a lot of people think, well, corn rootworm doesn't seem like they've been a problem, and now they are a problem. So what's going on? And, honestly, corn rootworm are one of those insects that are always around. We just don't happen to notice them because the effects that they cause to the corn plants are below the soil, right? So they're the larvae, the immature stages are feeding on the roots. And in years where we have ample water, we've got great genetics, lots of really good corn genetics out there, lots of ample roots to feed on. We don't really notice them. They become more of an issue. We can see more of them when years where we have drought situations, or in years where you've got a lot of large corn. So depending on what soil health looks like, depending on how much water might be available, corn rootworm effects seem to just kind of blow up or come out of the blue, right? But actually, they've always been there. One thing to keep in mind when it comes to corn rootworm management is that they have one generation per year. So if you have them as a problem this year, that problem actually started last year or even a few years ago because they have one generation per year. Those females lay the eggs in the fall, right? So after tasseling, because they're silk clippers as adults, they'll clip on the silks, they'll feed on the pollen, they'll feed on the tassels a little bit. They lay their eggs in the soil, and those eggs overwinter. So they spend the winter, the cold months, as eggs in the soil. They accumulate enough heat units, and then they emerge out of those eggs, the little wormy caterpillar, the little larvae, crawl out around that V2 time frame. It's around that they've accumulated enough heat units to be able to emerge out of the egg, and then they start feeding on the roots. They can migrate through the soil, in some cases up to 5 feet, which is really far for a teeny tiny little insect larva to go find those roots and then start feeding. So keeping all of those things in mind around the biology, some great tactics to employ would be to utilize a seed treatment with an insecticide, to utilize below ground traits for corn rootworm management. Syngenta offers a product called Duracade, which has 2 modes of action below ground. And then also I would recommend in areas where a guy's doing continuous corn, has had corn rootworm problems in the past, a soil applied insecticide like Force. Force is one of the most effective, if not the most effective, soil applied insecticide on the market. The active ingredient is tefluthrin, and there's 2 formulations that Syngenta has of Force. There's the 6.5G, which is a dry or granular formulation that a guy could put those old insecticide boxes onto the planters and deliver the material that way. Or there's new smart box units that can go on planters. There's also an electrically driven V drive that can actually meter out the granular Force formulation into the soil, so that goes in furrow. And there's also a liquid formulation called Force Evo, and Force Evo has a system that connects right into the plumbing of the fertilizer drop and is dropped right into the furrow as well. So there's a number of management strategies that we have to think about when we're managing corn rootworm. We have to stay a year ahead of them. We've got to utilize those traits. We've got to rotate those trait mode of actions, utilize a soil applied insecticide, and in some cases where there can be a lot of beetles in the field, you see a lot of the adults, a foliar application of an insecticide might be warranted to help knock back or chip away at that population to try to decrease over time the effects that corn rootworm can have in a particular area.
Talking with Deane Jorgenson from Syngenta. This isn't a corn rootworm question, but I'll ask anyway because I'm sure you've been seeing it. We've been seeing in Wisconsin, it started in southern Wisconsin, but it's been slowly spreading north, and that's tar spot. How much of a concern do growers have to have with that?
Well, tar spot is one of those sneaky diseases because it seems like it comes on super late in the season where people might not be really out scouting really. I mean, in areas where tar spot is prevalent, people are out and looking for it. But, it's kind of a little bit sneaky from the standpoint that it seems to just really blow up. So if you're aware of what the disease triangle, something that we call the disease triangle, you've got the host present, you've got the pathogen present, but you have to have the environmental conditions for that pathogen to then explode. We call that the disease triangle. So when all of those components come together to make that triangle, that's when you can really see the explosion of the diseases. So we're understanding more about tar spot. We're understanding more and more about the environmental conditions that are required. They really like the wet. They like those cold, soggy kinds of mornings for the population to really increase. Now, one of the things that has been shown to be really effective for tar spot management is Miravis-Neo. Miravis-Neo is a fungicide that has 3 effective modes of action. It's got azoxystrobin, it's got propiconazole, and it's got a product called adepidin, which is a novel and really super duper cool SDHI chemistry. It's one of the most effective SDHI chemistries on the market. And not only does Miravis-Neo control a lot of diseases, it shows excellent performance against tar spot. It's got a residual control to it as well. It keeps the plant greener and cleaner for a longer period of time than any other currently available fungicide. But one of the great things about it is in areas where you may have not had enough water, Miravis-Neo is excellent for water use efficiency and sunlight efficiency. So depending on where you are in Wisconsin, if any of those fires and the haze from Canada had come and settled down, sunlight penetration through a lot of that is really tough. So utilizing a fungicide, you can think beyond some of that disease control to some of those plant health benefits. And Miravis-Neo is an excellent choice in corn and soybeans both for those plant health benefits as well as the disease property control measures that it has.
That's Deane Jorgenson. She's Technical Development Lead with Syngenta. We're from the NAFB convention in Kansas City. I'm Brian Winnikins for WRDN.